Hello, everybody. This is so exciting. We have so many people today. Welcome, welcome. I was just saying to Felicia before we started, I was like, everyone just must love bagels. This is a hit. So I hope I do you guys justice. I hope we do a good job today, but I'm so excited. My name is Katie. For those of you I haven't met, I'm a pastry chef, baking instructor here with Michaels. And actually, fun fact, my first job ever in life when I was 14 was at a bagel store. So I've definitely seen my share of bagels, and making bagels at home is super fun. It's much easier than it may seem. Some of you might be a little intimidated, maybe if you're not familiar with bread baking, but it's fast, it's easy, and it's super fun. And it's great to make your own bagels. Who doesn't want to do that? But hi from Maryland. I saw somebody from Canada along the way, Pennsylvania, Texas, Florida. Welcome. I'm in New Jersey, and Felicia just put the recipe in the chat. So anybody who didn't get a copy of the recipe before class, definitely link that. And you could just print that out and keep it. And this is not just great for plain bagels. You can take this recipe. This is a great base recipe to take in 1,000 directions. You could do any flavor you'd like. I've used this to make, let's see, I made like cranberry orange bagels recently, cheddar, like an Asiago cheese bagel, like a whole bunch of different ones. So it's just super fun to have in your back pocket. But I will, yeah, yum. Thanks, Jennifer. Um, so I will, Felicia, when you're ready, come on down on the top down and I can show you guys what I'm working with. So you have all your ingredients. And there are a few sort of like kitchen-y, gadgety things that you might need for this recipe. Nothing that you probably don't have in your drawer. Maybe not these two, maybe, maybe not. But we are working with very simple ingredients. And let me know in the chat if you are familiar with bread baking, if you love bread baking, if you are just like not in that zone yet. Whatever place you're at, this is a great class. It's beginner, and you can also make it a little bit more advanced if you want to. New to bread baking, awesome. Oh, great. All right, so we're going to be working with yeast today. This is a yeast dough. This is like real bread here. We're making the real stuff. But in terms of ingredients, you'll notice that very few ingredients on the table. I've got bread flour. So let's go one by one and just talk about our ingredients just a touch. You bake cinnamon rolls, so I love that. Sourdough bread, amazing. Okay, great. Veteran homemade bagel. I love it. Oh, great. Well, thank you, Daisy. All right, so I've got bread flour here. So the difference between bread flour and all-purpose flour is the protein content. So if you're looking something like an all-purpose flour, you're going to find that the protein content, depending on the brand that you're buying, is probably going to be around 10 or 11%, maybe a bit lower, a bit higher, depending on what brand you're working with. And what that means is when we talk about creating those kind of crusty, chewy breads, like something like a baguette or a bagel, you want that chew. You want to be able to kind of pull it apart. You want that stretchiness in your dough. And so to create that texture, what we really want is a high protein flour. So bread flour is a high protein flour. It's going to be around 13 to 14% protein. And that's really going to help us as we mix our dough in our mixer. It's just going to help all of those protein strands kind of build their strength and work out and just make us a really amazing bread. And you're using all purpose. So great question. So if you are using all purpose, not a big difference. You will find you're going to get a little bit of a fluffier bagel than a chewy bagel. And you may want to increase the quantity just slightly. I would throw in an extra, let's say, 1/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, just to kind of balance out. It just won't soak up the liquid quite as readily as a high gluten flour will. So that's what we're working with today. You can also mix this recipe up. Once you get really comfortable, you can throw in some whole wheat flour, all different kinds of flours. It's best to always substitute out about 50% of the base flour that you're working with when you're getting into those specialty flours, just to kind of make sure. You'll find that whole wheat flours soak up a lot more liquid than a standard flour. So it is good to kind of take your time and do 50% of something else and just work your way up as you like. And I see a couple of questions. Is it okay if I'm using active yeast and not instant? Absolutely. And I have both kinds. We're going to talk about that in 1 minute as well. And yet, can you put whey protein in if using? You can absolutely experiment. You could definitely do like a high protein bagel, would be so fun. But yeah, definitely. Just keep in mind, anytime you're adding additional dry ingredients to your mix, you're going to want to kind of take out a little bit of your flour just to make sure you're not throwing off the texture of your dough. And can you substitute all-purpose gluten-free? Yes. So I love making gluten-free items as well. So I would try to find something that is comparable to a bread flour. And there are so many great gluten-free flours on the market. So definitely do some research and see if I'm looking to substitute a high gluten flour with one that's gluten-free, what's a good Brandon type to use, and you should find a good one. I've definitely used Cup for Cup in the past is a good one. Back in the day when I was working in restaurants, it was like brand new for Cup, and everybody was all about it. So that's a good one too. But I'm sure King Arthur as well makes really nice ones. All right, in terms of our liquid, so I've got warm water here. We'll talk about in a minute kind of the difference between yeast, but it is nice no matter what yeast you're using, just to kind of kickstart your dough a little bit, just by starting with warm water. And you'll find with yeast, you don't want hot water. So if you just kind of stick your pinky in and take a little read on the temperature, you want it to be like a nice, comfortable bath. You can kind of imagine warm, not overly hot. Overly hot yeast will just kind of overly hot water will just kind of mess with your yeast a little bit. I think it's been proven over time, it doesn't necessarily kill off your yeast. That was like an old wives' tale for a while, but it can sort of affect your yeast a little and just make it a little less comfortable. Remember, yeast is sort of a living organism, so we really want it to be really comfortable and happy kind of all the time. So just a nice comfortable bath here in the winter months for your yeast is a good place to be. All right, and in terms of some other ingredients, so I've got sugar. A little bit of sugar is going in my dough, and that's just going to help with sort of like the caramelization of the exterior of the dough, that Maillard reaction that happens. And we'll talk about our soaking liquid as well. But a little bit of sugar in the dough, I find just kind of rounds out the flavors and makes everything bake up really nicely. If you are not a fan of adding sugar to your bagels, you don't have to. You can cut this down as much as you want. I think we're starting with 2 teaspoons. But you can knock that down even to a half teaspoon, or you can take it out completely. But I do find that it sort of kickstarts the yeast, especially if you're working with active dry, you're going to want a little bit of sugar in there. And it just kind of like makes everything a little bit tastier. So, you know, us Americans, we put sugar in everything. So it's always good to have a little bit of sugar in your recipe. Same goes for salt. If you've ever tasted bread and you're like, wow, this is flat, or it doesn't brown properly, it just doesn't bake up the way you want it to, usually it's too low in salt. So salt is super important for bread. You really want to make sure that you're balancing these very simple ingredients, flour and water as the base with a little bit of yeast, with that salt to kind of enhance the flavors and just help everything really come together nicely. So in terms of cooking our bagels, oh yeah, totally. And so in terms of cooking our bagels, and then I'll get into the yeast last, I'm going to be using a boiling liquid. We're going to boil our bagels before we bake them. And if you've ever seen maybe like the behind the scenes of a bagel shop, you'll see they have like those huge vats of bubbling liquid going. And it's so amazing. They just sort of like toss in all the bagels and it's super fun. So what we're doing is we're sort of like, not to get too technical, but we're gelatinizing the starches of the bagel. So we're sort of like thickening the crust a little bit when we boil our bagels before baking. We're kind of drawing out those starches, aiding the caramelization of the bagels when they go into the oven by kind of adding a little bit of sugar or malt or anything like that to the boiling liquid. And it's kind of really fun to do. I have learned to make bagels in my culinary class in college. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So it's, oh, hi. I don't have packets. I have the bite of yeast. A bite of yeast. I might need glasses, but I think you said a bite of yeast. Do you mean fresh yeast or the container of yeast? If you're working with a container, one package is going to be 2 1/4, a bit. Oh, thank you. Thank you. 2 1/4 teaspoons per packet. So you're going to need 2 1/4. All right, perfect. And I am using a kosher salt. So this is a kosher salt. So it's like a little coarser than a table salt or a finely ground salt. I do like kosher for pretty much any baking recipe. I almost strictly use kosher. But if you have a finer sea salt, just watch how much you're adding. You might be able to cut this back a bit. This is 2 1/2 teaspoons of salt. So if you're using fine, just keep in mind, maybe knock that down to 2 teaspoons or so. All right, so in our boiling liquid, we're adding a couple of things to kind of help that process along. So one of those is baking soda, which is going to kind of change the alkalinity of our boiling liquid, kind of help our bagels brown really nicely when they hit the oven heat. And the other, today I'm using brown sugar, but you have some options in terms of what we're adding to kind of flavor this liquid. So brown sugar is going to add a little bit of sweetness and also a little bit of color. We have this dark brown sugar, so essentially we're adding a little bit of molasses. And if you don't have brown sugar, you can add straight molasses, kind of in the same quantity. And that's just kind of enhancing the color of the liquid. It's adding a little bit of sugars to the exterior of the bagels, so they caramelize a little deeper and brown really nicely in the oven. Or you can use, if you're really classic, like a malt syrup or malt powder, and that's going to add some great flavor as well. So to get into the big one, so to get into yeast, so I know some of you mentioned you're working with active dry versus instant. These are both great. I would say, and we're going to talk about this much more in depth later, but there are some places along the way when making bagels where you can sort of stop and let your dough rise overnight. So if you are going the overnight route or for more of an extended rise, using something like active dry tends to kind of like hold its strength a little bit longer. So that is really nice to use. Now, the difference is going to be you're going to want to activate this yeast, which we'll talk about when we start working with our dough before you use it. Something like instant, you can really add in with your dry ingredients. You can kind of just throw it into your recipe, and it just kind of works quickly and is very easy to go. So if you are making these bagels all in one shot, you can definitely work with instant yeast. So no matter which one you're using, you're going to go with the same quantity, which is this is a 1/4 ounce packet, which kind of translates to 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. How you guys feel? You're ready. Ready to make some bagels. I love it. Ooh, and I almost forgot. So I have some fun toppings. So grab any toppings that you want. I've got, these are kind of fun. I don't know. I found these in my cabinet. These are blue poppy seeds. I also made my own everything bagel seasoning with some stuff I had in the cabinet. So like minced onions, poppy seeds, sesame seeds, some coarse salt, a little bit of minced garlic if you have it. That could be a really fun mix, and you can kind of do as you please with that as well. And what is instant dry yeast? So instant dry yeast just does not require activating. The active yeast almost has like a protective coating around each granule of yeast. And to kind of release the yeast, we're going to kind of bloom it in some warm water to get it to work. Instant doesn't require that. It's much more easy to just kind of throw into your mix and use. But they both work in the same way. Your dough is going to rise in the same way. If you are doing a longer rise, again, I would go with more of an active dry, but we'll talk about that later as well. And you do have to use yeast.
Hey, Katie.
Yes. Yes.
I received a question
Oh, sure.
asking, can you make bagels without yeast?
Not these bagels. I'm sure there are recipes that exist, but this is like true bagels. I would definitely use yeast. You definitely want a yeast risen dough for these bagels, for sure. Why are we using baking soda? Yeah, so the baking soda, this is going to be for our boiling liquid, and this is going to raise the alkalinity of your boiling liquid and just help the bagels really caramelize nicely in the oven. So it kind of aids in the browning of your bagels, which is nice. Do you have to use sugar? Would fake sugar work? So many good questions. I would say I'm never a fan of fake sugar, but you can definitely use it. I would say, like I was sort of saying, you can cut down this as much as you want. And in terms of the brown sugar in your boiling liquid, you could leave that out completely if you wanted to. It does really enhance that browning of the bagels as they bake. But you can skip it if you want, or if you're more comfortable with molasses or malt syrup, you could definitely do that as well. I've noticed many are using Swerve. Yes. Can you use stevia? Yeah, you can. I would say like in the bagel itself, just add a little bit or just skip it. No need to. And same for this. You can leave this out, or you can, I wouldn't substitute any sort of sugar product in your boiling liquid. You could just skip it. But in your bagels, for a little bit of sweetening, you could use just a little bit of stevia, would be fine. But you can also just skip this as well. All right, so I'm going to shove this over here. How little salt can you use? I mean, you do definitely want salt. Salt is like such a flavor game changer. But if you are sort of like a low sodium diet or something like that, I would say, get as close to that amount as you're comfortable with, but you can get it down. I would say it's best to kind of at least use a little bit of salt just to make sure you're really balancing those flavors. But you can get it down a bit. Yeah. Oops. Oh, so sorry. Ah, how do I get rid of this? There we go. Thank you so much. Ah, so sorry.
So, also, let me switch to one of your other cameras.
Thank you so much. Ah, there we go. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're gonna get started. So you can probably come back. Yeah. Thank you so much. I was worried it was my daughter's school. She's at school right now, and I was like, oh my God, they're calling me. What's happening? You have an instant sourdough yeast. Yes. So the cheese will not affect the dough. We'll definitely talk about that as we get toward the end. From the recipe, 1/4 ounce packet yeast. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're totally right. So in the recipe, so it's a 1/4 ounce packet of yeast. It's 2 1/4 teaspoons. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Yes, please. So 2 1/4 teaspoons, but a 1/4 ounce packet of yeast. 1 packet. Can you add cinnamon to the dough? You know what's funny about cinnamon? Cinnamon actually affects yeast a bit. If you've ever made like a cinnamon sugar bread, you'll notice that it takes a lot longer to rise. Cinnamon actually slows the rise of your yeast, as does sugar. So if you're working with like a high sugar dough, like if you ever make cinnamon buns and you're like, why aren't they rising fast enough? They actually kind of steal the liquid away from your yeast, which sort of slows the rise. So there are special sugars that you can add to high sugar doughs, and sometimes those work well for cinnamon as well. But you can add a little cinnamon, but the best way to do it is kind of swirl. And we'll talk about that as we get to that point as well. So I just added my yeast. I sound like a chemist. Thanks, Jennifer. You guys are really testing my knowledge. I don't know, you know, like that. I got what I got, but let's see. But okay, so I got my instant yeast into my bowl. So if you are working with active dry, same idea. Get your yeast in, and then I'm going to add my water. And I like to do this whether I'm working with instant or active, just because I find it helps the yeast dissolve into the mix just a little bit easier. You can absolutely add instant yeast to your dry ingredients, and that will work well also. But yeah, this is helpful. So if you're working with active dry, the difference here is I would add a pinch of sugar at this stage and just cover this bowl with a piece of plastic wrap or a kitchen towel and let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. And when you come back, you'll find almost like a little like swamp. You'll get this sort of like foamy topping to your water. And that's when you know your yeast is activated. So that's the difference. With instant, I could just go right away. I could just keep working. With active, I'm going to want to cover it and let it rest for about 5 to 10 minutes.
Hey, Katie, there's a question
Yeah.
asking, can they use a sourdough starter instead?
You can. I would definitely not sub in, you know, without knowing exactly the ratio. I would definitely go with a sourdough starter bagel recipe that's sort of formulated for that. That would definitely be helpful. And no, I did not add my sugar yet. Yeah, so if you are working with active, you will always want to add a pinch of sugar before you set it aside. But in this case, because I'm working with instant, it doesn't really need it right now. I'm basically just going to get all my ingredients in. And it's kind of an easier mix that happens. I'm not even letting it sit. I'm just going right with it. It's as instantaneous as it sounds. So I've got my flour. And now the one thing I do like to do is sort of add my salt on top of my flour. And I think this has actually been disproven as well. But a old wives' tale for a long time was that if you put salt on yeast, kind of the same way we talk about sugar stealing the liquid from yeast and affecting it a bit, it was said that salt did that same thing. It kind of like prevented the yeast from getting the moisture it needed to live, and it would kill your yeast. I think in years, like they've sort of changed that and said, oh, it's fine, it doesn't matter. But I still just stick to that rule of just always adding my salt at the end on top of my flour. So it's not directly on my yeast, just to make sure everything is really happy. But I am working with the hook attachment, as you see, and I'm going to start this mixing. And actually, while it mixes, this is the perfect time to catch up on questions. So let me put this aside so I can hear a little bit better. Let's see. So I use a pan of hot water in my oven to help my cinnamon rolls to rise. Yeah, that's great. Steam, warmth, everything yeast needs to rise. That's perfect. I love the chocolate chip bagels from Panera. They seem to now be a plain bagel with a few chips. And yeah, we're going to talk about mix-ins as we get to the end of mixing our dough, because you don't want to add mix-ins too early. So if you are adding anything at all, just wait. We'll get there for sure. Did you add sugar to yours? And then I think it won't let me scroll. Scroll me. Sorry, my face is so close. There we go. Okay. And yes, the recording will be on YouTube, I think in 48 hours, With active dry yeast, do we wait? We talked about that. And if you don't have a hook, so if you don't have a hook attachment, the best part of this dough is this is not what we call like a high hydration dough. A high hydration dough is like a very sticky, wet dough. And a lot of times you'll see no knead recipes where instead of kneading the dough, you're sort of lifting and folding the dough every 30 minutes because they're so wet. In this case, oh, thanks. In this case, because it's sort of a stiff dough, you can actually knead this whole thing by hand. You don't even need the mixer if you don't want to. You will want to make sure that you get to the same point. So we're going to talk about like what your dough should look like at the end of kneading. And if you're kneading by hand, that's going to take, not to like scare you or anything, but it could take double the time to get to that point if you're kneading by hand versus kneading in a mixer. So that's the only downside. But sometimes if I'm doing that, like I'll call my husband in and I'll be like, just knead for like 10 minutes. And like, he's got muscles. So he'll just knead. But I am, depending on the strength of your mixer, you'll see this going here. I'm on like a low to medium speed. I'm not going too much faster than that. I also have KitchenAids. This is sort of like my baby mixer that I like to pull out sometimes. The KitchenAid, I tend to give it like a little more juice. You could go, I wouldn't go crazy. You don't want the thing moving around, but you could go to like a medium speed if you want to. But I find like a slow and steady is great. It's just sort of working. It's doing its thing in here. There's no rush. But what we do want to do is give the dough time to sort of like develop that gluten that we talked about. We want it to smooth out to this smooth consistency. It should be stretchy. It should be supple. So that does take time. So we're going to give it a few minutes to do that. Do you know if I can use a bread maker? I would say yes. I honestly don't have a bread maker, so I can't say for sure, but I would think so. I think you can. Read your instructions, on your manufacturer's instructions, and just check for a dough like this, like a stiff dough, if it's going to work for that. And no, I did not add the brown sugar. So the brown sugar and the baking soda, you're waiting for your boiling liquid. So you should not, if you are baking along, you should still have your baking soda and you should still have your brown sugar. If you add it in your brown sugar, it's fine. But definitely don't add your baking soda. That's for our boiling liquid. So let's see if I could get you closer with the other camera, just so you can see what the dough looks like. Take a look where it's at. So it's sort of kneading. It's like a little hard to see. I'm going to open it up when it's ready. Now, typically what we're going to do is something called a window pane test, which sounds kind of interesting, but essentially what it means is at some point we're going to stretch our dough. So I'm going to take my dough out, and we may get to this point in class, we may not, if I just decide to go with the batch that I've already let rise. But essentially you're going to stretch your dough, and it should stretch so thin that you can almost see through it like a window without it ripping in the center. That's called a window pane test. So if you're able to do that, if your dough is so supple and stretchy and smooth that you could just stretch, and it makes this beautiful thin texture, then you're great. If for some reason you're stretching your dough and it starts ripping right away, or just like it's not stretchy, you wouldn't describe it as supple and smooth, keep going, keep kneading, because the longer you knead your dough, the more gluten is created, the more that structure in the dough is created. And something like bagels really benefits from a lot of structure. So don't be afraid to I know sometimes when we're baking, we're like, oh my God, I can over mix. And that's true 95% of the time. But when you're making bread, typically you can really knead for a very long time. And if you see like a lot of these videos on Instagram of people with like these super stretchy doughs, and they're just like really stretching them, and they're like, those are needed for like a very long period of time. So definitely don't be shy about kneading your dough. And I'll show you where we are right now. So it's only been, I don't know, like a few minutes, something like that. And a bench scraper, I know, look how gloopy it is. So a bench scraper like this, like a plastic scraper, can be really helpful when you're working with bread doughs like this. But I'm not even going to touch it. I'm just going to stretch it. See how it's sort of like stretchy but falling apart? If your dough is different than this, like somebody just said, if your dough is dry, can you add water? Now keep in mind, when you're measuring your ingredients, so if any of you haven't started baking yet, and I'm going to keep this going while I answer. So if any of you haven't started baking, when you measure your flour and your water, whenever you're baking, it's always good when you're measuring dry ingredients to either spoon and level or use a kitchen scale, because that's going to really change the consistency of your dough. So for something like bread, you have some room to play. So if you're looking at your dough and you're like, wow, this is really dry and it's like really working, you can add a bit more water and adjust the consistency a little bit. If it looks super wet, I wouldn't worry as much. We'll talk about as it sort of mixes and rises and develops gluten, it's going to kind of tighten up a little bit. So don't worry too much about that. But if it is dry, you can add just a splash of water. And if you don't have a stand mixer, you're going to do this by hand, not with a beater, just by hand in a bowl. And just do this a lot. Stretch and pull is what we would call it. You'd stretch your dough and let it fall, stretch your dough, let it fall over and over again until it develops some strength. And so the weight of the measurement of the flour is typically 120 grams per cup. So this is 3 3/4 cups. Oh, 350. Somebody check my math. That can't be right. No, sorry, 3 3/4 cups, 360, but 450. Is that right? 120 times 3 3/4. That's your weight. All right, so as we develop gluten in this dough, and I'm just like cranking it for a minute, I would really let this go another 6 to 8 minutes. And you'll find what you can sort of see happening here a little bit is it's starting to sort of slap against the side of the bowl a little. This is kind of characteristic of brioche a little bit when you're making brioche, where it sort of starts to slap a little bit, which is kind of fun. But you'll notice the longer I knead this dough, the more that structure in the dough is created. I'm so sorry for yelling. You probably can't even hear my mixer. The more the structure is created and the more that dough will tighten up and it'll develop that strength and it'll kind of create its own structure. So if you're looking at your consistency now and it looks wet, don't do anything. Just roll with it, knead it completely and see where it lands. You can always add a bit of flour when you're kneading later or shaping your dough later. That's fine. If your looks like clumpy sand, like Adina just said, oh man, if yours looks like clumpy sand, add a bit more water. And make sure, check that you measured everything correctly as best as you can remember. And you can watch this video later on YouTube. I think in 48 hours, they post on the Michael's channel. It will be there. And there's also all sorts of other fun videos on there that you can check out as well. Not to do like a promo or anything, but all right. So I would really keep this going quite a bit. Quite a bit, which I'm not going to make you wait for. We're just going to move forward. But essentially, oh, actually, I'll just keep it going while we do the other stuff. And then you can see. So hold on. I'm going to put this aside. And mine actually looks a little bit wet, funny enough. I'm going to add a little bit of flour. If it's really not coming together, if it's not getting any strength or structure, I'm going to move it over here so it's not super loud. You can add just a bit of flour. Go over here. All right, so I'm going to keep that going. And if that sound is bothering anybody, let me know and I'll stop it at any point.
So just know that because of Zoom, it has noise cancellation, so we don't hear it at all.
Fabulous. I love when sometimes like I'll watch these back and I'm just yelling and no one can hear it. Probably like making meringue or something, just like yelling really loudly. So that's always fun. All right, so come on down. So let's take a look at this. All righty. So this is dough that's risen. So let's talk about letting dough rise. So after we've kneaded to the point where our dough has that structure, it's smooth, it's supple, it's stretchy, and we're going to wait for our dough to get there. So I'll show you that when it gets there. You're going to transfer it to a bowl, or you could even leave it in your mixer bowl. There's no need to grease the bowl or anything like that for this dough. There's no real fat needed here. You're just going to let it rise. So to do that, you always want to cover, whether it's plastic wrap or a kitchen towel, give it a nice airtight, you fixed it. Oh, yay, Adina, I'm so glad. You want to give it a nice airtight seal because any bit of air is going to kind of dry up the surface of your dough. It can make it like a little crusty. So you do want to make sure it's properly covered. But at this stage is when you can really have some fun about the timing of your dough. And you'll find that this is true for a lot of different bread doughs that you make. There are certain points along the way that you could really stop and let the bread work for your schedule, which can be so helpful. So at this stage, this is what we call the bulk fermentation stage. This is when the entire dough is just kind of taking time to rise. All of those gases are created, the dough lifts up and expands in volume, the gluten structure kind of evens out, those sugars kind of aid in the texture and flavor of the dough, all those flavors develop. And so this bulk fermentation stage is super critical to the flavor and texture of your dough. So to know when your dough has properly risen, you're going to look at the volume, the shape and size of it beforehand, and the shape and size of it afterwards. So my dough started somewhere around here, and now it's bulked up to here. So it's about doubling in volume. Now, timing is totally up to you. If I was working with this dough and wanted to work with it right away, I could cover it and leave it on my countertop at room temperature. And it could take about an hour and a half to double in volume. If it's the middle of summer and it's really warm in your house, it could even be faster than that. If it's winter and it's super cold, it could be slower than that. So yeast, the rate of rise is going to depend on the temperature of your room. So it's never good to look at a clock when you're letting dough rise. It's always more helpful to look at the dough itself and just keep an eye on how it's rising, how quickly it's rising. And that's going to let you have some control over your end results. Now, if you don't let this rise long enough, you're sort of missing out on that structure, that flavor, all of those gases and lift and air bubbles, all of that you won't get if you rush this period. If you let it go overboard, like let's say I left this here and just went out for the day and it was like 6 hours and I came back and my dough was ginormous. What can happen is that yeast kind of loses some of its activity and potency because it's kind of overworked itself to the point where it kind of runs out of food and it just has nothing left to give. Most of the time, if you let your dough rise too long, you can just punch it down and then just work with it and go about your recipe. You may just not get the same oven spring or lift as you add your item to the oven as you would normally. So that's the only downside. Now, what I did and what I love to do is to do an overnight rise. So I cover this bowl, I put it in the refrigerator overnight, and we talked about how cooler temperatures kind of slow the rise of our yeast. That's a slower fermentation or a slower rise. So it gives our yeast even more time to kind of eat and enjoy and build in flavor, and everything is just yummy and good. And it just kind of improves the texture and flavor of your dough. So an overnight rise can be super helpful just in terms of, kind of improving your dough, but also in terms of timing. You don't have to do everything in one day or in one shot. So that could be really helpful as well. All right, so what we're going to want to do with this, I've got some bench flour here. So bench flour is just like a little bit of flour that you're going to use on your surface. And I'm going to, yeah, I'll keep this. I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way. And if you get to this stage where you're ready to work with and shape your dough, there are a couple other things that you do want to do, which is get your boiling liquid ready. So to do that, I'm going to show you what I've got here. Ooh, it's very hot. Hold on, let me grab a trivet. Thank you so much. Okay, so I've got a big pot of water. You can come back. All right. So I got a big pot of water, and depending on what size pot you've got, you just want to make sure there's like 2 or 3 inches of water in your pot. So give your bagels enough room to kind of float and be happy. And I am using like a nice large pot, so I can do a couple or even 3 bagels at once, depending on the size of my batch. How about a proofing setting in the oven? You can, definitely. And somebody was talking about putting like a hot, even like a steam bath in their oven to kind of aid in the rise. Just remember, the more quickly your dough rises, kind of the less time it has to develop that flavor and structure. So I really don't like to rush the process. If I was doing a final rise, you'll find we're going to rise this dough twice. So the bulk fermentation, that first one, the longer you give it, the better your dough is going to be. If I was shaping my dough and then letting it rise again, that's when I sometimes will let it rise in the oven just for like a quick proof, especially if I want to bake something off quickly and I don't want to wait for it as much. Mine looks like cookie dough. Wow, interesting. Guys, what's going on here? At what point is best for adding like raisins and eggs? Oh yeah, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So if yours looks like cookie dough, I would go with it and just keep how does your knead look? How is your kneading process going? I think that's like my main question for you. I wouldn't add too much water to it. Maybe a splash, but no more than that. All right, but what I'm going to do with this is just bring it to a full boil. So if you are baking along, bring your water to a boil. Don't add your baking soda or your sugars yet. Just bring it to a boil, and then we're going to add that before we add our bagels. All right. And I just want to show you with time. How my dough is sort of shaping up. So still soft and sticky, but we're kind of gaining some structure, some stretchiness. Ooh, sorry. You can see how it's got like a little more strength to it. It's kind of building up that stretch. So this is looking good. I'm going to let it go a few more minutes. At what point is, oh yeah, still very dense. Yeah, I mean, add a splash, Jacqueline, but don't overdo it. All right, a few more minutes, and then we're going to go with that. But in the meantime, we're going to start shaping our dough. So let's scoot this guy over. Come with me. So this is where it kind of gets fun. And this is where you're like, oh, I'm really making bagels. So I'm going to take my bench scraper. And if your dough is soft when you touch it, and you can kind of see, if I just poke it, see how it's got some air in it, but it's not deflating when I poke it. That's a really nice rise. If you poke it and it's like a balloon, it just sort of like releases all its air and maybe slightly overproofed, but that is okay. So I'm just going to dust my surface just with some flour. And I'm going to take my scraper and just take this out of the bowl. It almost looks like pizza dough. It's got like some bounce to it, you know? What's an ideal temperature for rising dough? I would say around 70 degrees, even a bit warmer, 75. Depending on the type of dough that you're working with, if you've got fat in the dough, that's where those warmer temperatures can kind of get in your way a little bit because the fat will start to melt a bit. All right. So here's where I'm going to portion. So we've bulk fermented our dough, and this is going to make, if you look at the recipe, 8 bagels. So I'm just going to go ahead and take something sharp like a bench scraper or a chef's knife, and I'm just going to divide this. You could also weigh if you're like you really want to make sure all your bagels are perfectly even. Use a kitchen scale. And now I've got 4, so now all I have to do is cut each one in half to get 8. And at this point, you'll notice I didn't knead my dough. It's still got a lot of air in it. If you try to knead your dough now at this point, for any reason, if you're like, oh, it's too sticky for me, I want to add some flour to it now, what's going to happen is once you start working that dough again, it builds up that strength and that gluten again, and it's going to get really hard to shape. It's just going to want to shrink back on you. So really take your time. And yeah, you can use a sheet of parchment. It's going to be kind of sticky because it's going to kind of stick to the parchment a little bit, which may not be ideal. What kind of board am I working? This is actually just like a really big cutting board that I have. It's not any fancy brand or anything like that. All right, so a couple of options when it comes to shaping, and one of these is really good to know for a whole bunch of breads. This is how you would make sort of bread rolls. I'm going to just cup my hand around the dough. I'm just going to scoot these out of the way. I'm sort of cupping my hand in a C, and I'm just going to rotate the dough as I turn. And if you've got a really floury surface, sometimes that can get in your way. So you can go ahead and clear off some of that flour if you need to. But all I'm doing is twisting and twisting until it sort of tightens up and creates like a little seam at the base of the ball. So this is good to kind of round out any kind of dough that you want to form into balls, whether it's like little dinner rolls, or anything like that. It kind of just rounds it out. So you'll see on the bottom, I've got like a little seam. That's good. So this is one option. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to shape bagels. This is the first. So I'm going to do 4 of them like this. So I'm just taking a C and just rounding it out. A nice little ball. If you get really good, you could do 2 at once. And see, some parts are sticking to me. I don't want it to stick to me, but I do want it to stick to the board. So if it's sticking to your hands, just flour your hands. And same deal. That's pretty good. All right, the other option is for kind of a more classic New York style bagel. I'm just going to take it and I'm going to roll a rope. And for this, if you need a touch of flour on your surface, that's fine. My dough's like a little sticky, so a little bit. And if you're like me and you just added too much, and now you have no traction, take a little off.
Katie, I got a question that was
Oh, yeah.
asked. If using a scale, what weight would they would be scaled at?
Oh, if we scale the dough?
I believe that's what she's asking.
Oh, I would weigh the whole dough because everyone's might be slightly different. I would weigh the whole dough, divide that amount by 8, and then portion. Because my dough may weigh slightly more than your dough, and so on and so forth if we measure things slightly different. All right. Ooh, that was a real sticker. Let's add a little flour to that. Oh, and my dough is looking really good. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. My dough is done. And I know that was definitely longer than like 6 to 8 minutes. But again, with dough, you want to kind of give it time to develop. If you can hear your mixer starting to work a little bit, you've done a good job. So here's where the difference comes in. So for these, it's going to be a lot more simple. I'm going to take my finger, go right in. Boop. You could dust your finger a little bit. Make a little hole. And then you could take 2 fingers, one on each side, and just kind of stretch. And you do want your center to be a bit bigger than you think, because as the bagels boil in the liquid and then rise in the oven, they're going to kind of shape into the center. So you're going to lose a little bit of that hole. So don't be afraid to really like round it out a bit. And that's going to be one kind of bagel. So we'll do that one more time. So right in the middle, dust your finger. Boop. Go all the way through. Oh, hi. And then I'm just doing this. This is kind of fun for kids too. Just like pulling taffy. Yeah, it is like pulling taffy. Yeah, this method is easier. Although I don't like the shape quite as much, funny enough. But it is easier. Ooh, there we go. Okay. Right in the center. 2 fingers. Whee. It is like weirdly satisfying. If you are doing this, so when we get to the point where we've shaped our bagels, to avoid it sticking to your surface once they're shaped, make sure to really dust a little flour and place them on. So this is going to keep them from getting stuck to your board now that you've shaped them so nicely. Feel free at any point to kind of stretch out the middle if you need to. And that's fine. So we'll do one more of those and then we're going to do the last one. So for the other technique, which I feel like is more legit, you're moving. Nice. So for this one, I'm going to take my 2 ends and stick them together. Just like that. And you see how right away when you see this, don't you think like more of a bagel? A little flour on your hand, and just to seal it up, I'm just going to kind of rotate that against the table. And that's going to seal up my bagel really nicely. So this is the semi more complicated version. Make sure your ends are sticking together. If they're not, just dust off any excess flour. Ooh. Don't let your mixer fall off the table. Thank you so much. Hello. Oh, they. Hi. All right, same thing. I'm sort of getting my hand in there and just finishing it off. Now, these are not going to be as perfect as the ones where you poked your finger in. They just won't. They'll always have like a little bit more interest, but it's kind of more, it's like more authentic, I feel like. So loop your ends together. with your hand on the inside, right where that seam is. I'm just rotating lightly against the table just to seal it up. Oh yeah, I love making donuts. Same deal. Can you make bialys? Yeah, you can definitely. Yeah, you can use the same dough for bialys. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get our boiling liquid and we're going to boil. So let me bring over, and before I do that, let me show you the dough. All right, so this is the dough that's been kneading a bit. Ooh. So if I kind of scrape this down a little and just show you the difference in texture. See how suddenly, even though it's sticky, it's got a lot more texture to it. It's holding together much more similar to these. So this is only, it's just time of kneading. That is it. Kneading builds the gluten. It builds the strength of your dough. Look how now it's not really sticking to my fingers when I touch it. If I flour my fingers a little bit, I can kind of stretch this dough, get that window pane that we talked about. This is good. You could even go longer if you wanted to. Don't be afraid to really let your dough go. You can set it aside in your mixer if you're working with one, and you can kind of walk away from it for about 5 minutes or so and still be fine. Now, when I let this rise, it develops even more structure. It gets even better, even tastier. So now this is the time when we're doing that bulk fermentation. What's a good amount of time to knead? Again, same as rising. It's hard to look at a clock when you're working with bread. It's all about that. It's about the feels, which for some of you, you're like, that sounds terrible. I don't want to have to worry about feels. But to be honest, that's what it is. At this point, you cover. If your dough looks like this, if it stretches, if it's smooth, if it's got some strength to it, if you can touch it with your finger and it's not sticking to you, that's a good sign that it's developed some structure. All of that is good. That's the point where you can sort of stop there and just cover it up and let it rise. And then you've got this situation. So let me bring over the boiling water. And now this is all going to happen very quick. So we should actually finish on time, I think. It's a good time to wash your hands, for sure. Let's move this aside. You're also going to need a baking sheet, ideally one that's lined with parchment. And I also gave it a spray, just with some nonstick cooking spray, just to make sure my bagels don't stick. I've got my burner here, just so you can see it a little bit easier. I'm going to bring over my boiling liquid. Oh, don't look at my mess. Oh, Lord. Here we go. Okay, I'll bring it closer. Okay. So boiling liquid, you should still have your brown sugar and your baking soda. I'm going to crank the heat on this so it's kind of actively boiling. And just give me 1 second just to wash my hands really fast. Oh, I heard Mia's bagels sound good. That's good. Can we use silicone? Yes, you can definitely use a sil pad or silicone mat for this. That would be great as well. Absolutely. All right. So you also are going to need some sort of spider or slotted spoon, like this guy. A messy kitchen means the food will come out great. Exactly. That's what I tell my husband all the time. Don't worry about the mess. It means it's good, you know? All right. So baking soda, brown sugar. And again, the brown sugar could be malt syrup. It could be molasses, anything you like. Just lob in your brown sugar, give it a stir. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Mix-ins. Thank you. Okay, while we do this, we'll talk mix-ins. Hold on. I'm just going to get my baking soda in. And at this point, make sure you've got enough room in your pot because this is going to bubble a little bit. Whee! Sort of like a potion. All right, so as we boil, I'm going to talk about mix-ins. So first off, if you floured your surface, your bagels should not stick. If for some reason they are sticking, just take a bench scraper or any sort of spatula and just kind of lift them up and separate that way. But all I'm going to do is get it right into the pot. And I'm going to do a couple at a time, maybe even 3 at a time, if I could fit them. And we're going to go about 30 seconds on one side, and then we're going to flip them and do about a minute or 30 seconds to a minute on the other side. So while we do this, it's a good time to talk about mixing. So at this stage that we just talked about, before you do bulk fermentation, this is where you would add your mix-ins. And to do that, all you would do is kind of fold them into your dough. You don't have to worry too much about really kneading them in. You're just sort of folding them in. So something like, let's say, for example, orange zest and cranberries, or freeze-dried blueberries, or cheese, or anything like that. At this point, you can kind of fold it in and just go with it that way. Now, if you're working with something like a cinnamon sugar, like a swirl, I would wait until the point of shaping. Because as you kind of create each of those lobs of dough, you could just swirl in some cinnamon sugar. And that way it's not going to affect your rise at all, which can be really helpful. We flip these. Whee. See how they're starting to look like bagels? So that's where you do mix-ins. If you want to add something like, oh, that's an interesting one, Zoe. If you want to add something like cheese on top of your bagels or any other items on top of your bagels, you're going to do that after this point. So we'll kind of wait for that. And I have never made peanut butter bagels. That sounds fascinating. It's a great question. I would say if you're adding it directly to your dough, it could affect the texture of the dough a little bit. So I would just be careful about that. I'm just letting some of the excess water drip off, and I'm just transferring right to my baking sheet. And you'll find that there's always like a pretty side and a not pretty side. Like, look how pretty this one is. This one, you know, you might want to turn it over, maybe not. They don't all have to be beautiful. They'll be delicious. Oh, peanut butter chips. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I like that, Elizabeth. That's a good one. All right. Next tip. I would just add my peanut butter when I'm eating my bagel. That's what I would do. My struggle is the water drip. Do you have like a good slotted spoon? Just spread it on, exactly. I'm with you. For chocolate chip bagels, you add chocolate to the dough. You could definitely add chocolate chips to the dough, or if you want to swirl in some cocoa powder or something like that to add a little chocolate swirl, I would definitely do that at that same stage as we would swirl in cinnamon right before you shape these into rounds. That would be a good time to do that. Same with if you want to color your dough like rainbow colors, you could do that. You don't. Oh, tricky. You could even take the handle of a wooden spoon and use that to kind of pick them up and let them drip out. This can be really easy to do as well.
Hey, Katie.
Pickles are actually very forgiving. Yes.
There's a few questions.
Oh, sure.
There was someone that was also asking about, I guess, adding eggs. And if you could repeat about how long you let it boil on each side.
Oh, so 30 seconds on the first side and about 30 seconds to a minute on the second side is great. And in terms of adding eggs, so that's interesting. Like a what kind of eggs? Like a French toast bagel kind of situation, or like a I need more details. All right, but so again, you'll see like there's the pretty side. If you want to, I'm gonna maybe like an egg bagel. So that would be if you're doing a dough that maybe has like egg yolks in it, that's gonna be a slightly different formulation of the dough. So I would definitely look for a recipe that's specific to that. Anything you're adding into the dough that isn't a dry ingredient, I would definitely look for a recipe that specifically is made for that. So at this point, when they're hot, if you want to, I'm going to be brushing them with egg white. If you don't have an extra egg on hand or something like that, as you take them out of the water, you can also put them directly into toppings if you want to pop them into like some everything bagel seasoning or something like that. That's a good time to do it while they're still wet. So you could do it that way. The reason I'm going to brush with egg white is I find it gives them like a little bit of a sheen that's very nice. And I just like the way that looks, and it also just makes it easier to add toppings, you know, at your own pace without any sort of rush. So here I've got a little bit of egg white with a brush. I've got some everything bagel seasoning. I've got some poppy seeds. You can use coarse salts, you know, anything you want. Exactly. And it also makes it not vegan. So if you, you know, if for any reason you need to skip the egg, you could definitely do that. I would just take them right out like this and put them right into a plate with any sort of toppings that I want. I could just dip them right in. All right. So your egg should fit nicely on your baking sheet. And at this point, you also want to make sure your oven is preheated to 450 degrees. And that's a great question. So why don't they rise a bit when we're adding them to the liquid? The reason for that is the boiling liquid actually sets the structure. It sort of starts cooking them immediately. So you can imagine I'm putting them into boiling water. It kind of immediately seals the crust of my bagel. So what that's doing is it's thickening the crust. It's kind of setting the shape of my bagel. They're still going to rise in the oven. So you'll still see we get a little bit of lip. But the reason it doesn't really rise in the water is it kind of immediately sets the shape with that heat. So a little bit of egg white brushed over the top. An egg wash with like an egg yolk in the mix would just be a little dark. So the egg white just adds a little bit of sheen without really adding extra color that we're going to kind of get anyway as we cook our bagels. And you can finish these any way you like. Just make sure you brush them all over. I'm sprinkling on, but you could also press them into your toppings. Oh, yeah, that's great. Felicia's going to upload so you can have this for your weekend bake if you want. These I'm going to do some poppy seeds. And this temperature, the 450 temperature is a high temperature. And we are looking for that browning. So having a really nice high oven heat is going to be really helpful in getting that structure of the bagel, that nice crispy, chewy exterior, that fluffy center, but also giving you that deep browning that you're sort of used to seeing on bagels. I know, we're like almost at the end. We're almost there, guys. I'm going to leave a couple plain. And after class, I know you guys aren't going to see these baked off, but I will upload a picture to Instagram. So if you follow us on Instagram at Learn with Michaels, you'll see a picture of these coming out of the oven later today. So I'm going to get these in the oven. I do have a few that are already baked, so I'll bring those over. Right in they go. Let me clean this up a little bit first. Let's just move this. Oh, come with me. Thank you. Okay. I know, the suspense. The suspense. Grab your toppings. Cream cheese. Okay, there we go. Who said a messy kitchen is a good one? Whoever said that. That's the motto today. I like it. All right, so when they come out of the oven, put them on a rack to cool. So make sure, oh, thank you so much. Make sure you put them on a rack. That even airflow is going to kind of stop that cooking process. But what we're looking for, if you listen to this texture, can you hear that? Can you hear that crunch?
Can't. Oh my gosh, I would have
You
loved to have
can't?
heard that. We can't hear it.
No. Ah, that's annoying. Well, it's very crunchy. Cinnamon sugar on top, be careful about on top because it may burn. I would definitely add, let's say in like the last few minutes of baking, once they get to like a nice light golden brown, take them out, brush with egg white then, and put on the cinnamon sugar. And that's going to kind of just limit that time that the cinnamon sugar is in the oven and keep it from baking because that 450 temperature is definitely a high one for cinnamon and sugar for sure. But okay, let me cut into one. So at least you can hear, well, you won't hear it apparently, but look how many seeds. But what's nice about these bagels is, especially when they're freshly baked, so, you know, if you let them rise overnight and you bake them in the oven, you get that really crunchy exterior, you get that fluffy center. Make sure you use a serrated knife. You can kind of see how chewy and crispy Do you make homemade cream cheese? I do not. I do not make home. I'm not that fancy. I wish I was. I do make homemade ricotta and homemade butter. But I do not make homemade cream cheese because the rate my 4-year-old goes through cream cheese, it's like, it's amazing. We probably go through like 2 tubs of cream cheese a week. All right, guys. I'll just bite in just so you could see. This is also lunchtime for me, so this is really helpful. But lox, you can do anything you like. Sorry, we didn't hear how long to leave them in the oven. Oh, yes, sorry. So I believe it's on the recipe. I believe it's like 16 to 18 minutes. 16 to 18. Oh, here you go. I know, you didn't see. Maybe come to my other camera. Come to my side. Or there. Hey, Chebs. Hi. These are our bagels. Crunchy bagels. I can never find where the camera is. You can also, once you shape your bagels, before you bake and boil, you can also shape them and have them in the fridge overnight. And then you can just boil and bake them in the morning, which can be really helpful as well. I would like to taste them. Oh, great.
Someone asked, could they go in the freezer after they've been made?
Yeah, definitely. I actually store everything in the freezer. So after they're made, I do like to slice them in half first, just so you could pull out a half at a time if you want and toast them up without having to worry about them being frozen. But you can bake and cool these completely and freeze them in an airtight container or in a zip top like freezer gallon bag up to a month, maybe longer, maybe 2 months. And then just take them out and put them in your toaster as you want. And they're great. And you can also make mini bagels with this. You can kind of do anything, which is so fun. And how long should they stay fresh? So homemade bagels don't last quite as long, unfortunately, as like bagel store bagels. I would say like the day they're baked, they're fantastic. The next day they're still good. I would definitely freeze them any longer than that, just to make sure you're really keeping them fresh.
Hey, Katie, I just want to add for all of those who may be new to Katie classes, she does have some other classes that are currently on our YouTube channel. So definitely please keep go out there and take a look at them. Also, she does have a lot of upcoming classes. So please, please, please go ahead and I'm so sorry, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely please check out her classes that are coming. You can always go and take a look out on our calendar on michaels.com/classes. And you can, if you want to just narrow it down, you can always click on the food crafting to see what classes she has available. But definitely please go back and take a look at some of her previous classes, and believe me, she has a lot of great classes.
Thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you, Felicia, for building me up like that. But thank you guys so much. Happy baking, Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me today. It was so fun to have you. Any other questions, definitely let us know. But Learn with Michaels is the Instagram account. I'm at Katie Rosenhaus on Instagram. Check me out there too. I don't have a big following or anything, so don't get excited about it. But come by, visit, and I'll post a photo of the finished bagels on Instagram and tag Michaels later today, so you'll see those as well. And the recipe, Deborah, we linked it in the chat. It's also under the class description. If you need it, it's there as well. Thank
And
you
it
guys
will
so much.
also be on our YouTube channel. So once the class is uploaded, if you go into the class description, you will also have a link to the recipe there as well. Well, alrighty, everyone. We
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much for joining us. And until next time, have a great day and a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye.